Three, two, one. What's up, everyone? Welcome to Mental Wealth Talks by Nita Friendly. I'm one of your hosts, RJ, and today I'm with
Diondre.
All right, so we're basically getting into the science of well-being, aka the science of happiness. Now, we've been taking a course called The Science of Well-Being by Professor Dr. Lori Santos of Yale. Now, this is a free course. You can actually get it on Coursera, so we got to give a shout out to them because they're giving us this free game. And of course, Dr. Lori Santos, she is amazing and basically putting all these things in together because we don't really know how hard happiness is until you ask yourself, are you happy? So, are you happy?
I would say 50-50. Life
Come
is
on, that's not a good chance.
Life is lifing right now. So I would say 50-50, you know?
Okay. I definitely feel that because I feel like happiness is definitely like a constant balance between what we're going through and how we're perceiving it, you know, because life is going to happen to you no matter what. You're going to have struggles in this world, whether we're a different race, whether we're in a different country, whether we're in a different financial bracket, you know, because, you know, rich people got problems too, right?
That's true.
And I would say that definitely, like, people like to think like, oh, if I look a certain way or if I am a certain way, I'm not going to have these problems or I'm going to be more happy, when in reality it's like, no,
Exactly.
you're not. Like, when we talk about happiness, you know, there is this way that you can start thinking like, what is the meaning of happiness? Like, what does happiness mean to you? And I'm actually curious, what does happiness mean to you for real?
So happiness for me is a joy, right? It's a joy in finding something or someone or something that brings you joy. Like an example is I love to teach. That's my happiness, right? And another important thing to include in that is it's a repeatability, right? Something you can do over and over and over again, or someone that you can look at over and over again, and they just bring you joy or that happiness. So I think that's a big part of it for me. I love to teach. I love my family. They're the ones that bring me happiness.
Because happiness is definitely like when you can find happiness in whether it's sunshine or rain, you know, you gotta wake up and still take the day by the horns, because you're not always going to wake up and it's not always sunshine. You know, if it's raining, you got to grab the umbrella and still get the day going. Be happy you at least have an umbrella. But I know some people might want to walk through the rain.
No, not me. I would take the umbrella.
So when you start thinking about happiness, you realize that it's a lot of work to be happy, man. It's not easy.
It takes work.
It's like an everyday struggle. Like, you wake up and you're like, you just lay in bed and like, am I happy today?
Well, that, again, like I said, happiness, I would say my family, my daughter brings me that happiness, right? Oh my God.
That bug doesn't buy you happiness?
No, it doesn't. Like, I think about, like you said, waking up, right? It's like, oh, like, you know, you might not be happy, but okay, I see my daughter, I give her a kiss on the forehead.
At least you woke up.
That made me happy. So again, those are the things that you have to kind of, as you're navigating through life, you have to find these things that make you happy, right?
True.
Otherwise, you're just going to be moping around depressed, and it's not a good thing. You have to find things that make you happy. And then again, like you said, it's work. But you're going to have to ask yourself that. So.
It's about the little things too, because if you're not happy with the little things, then how can you ever be happy with the big? I mean, it's easy to be happy with the big things, you know. I'm sure, like you said, like, oh, you have a baby, it's like, wow, amazing. And now the baby comes with crying and screaming and diapers, but it's still so happy because it's your baby. You love those little, like, even when you're like, I get to change your diapers now because you won't do it in like 10 years, you know. And it's those little bits of like, oh, you're happy, oh, you get this happiness. Because if you stay fixated on the things that don't make you happy, oh man, it is so easy to not be happy.
And I think it's important to, when you're choosing these things or finding these things that make you happy, that they're kind of long-term happiness, right? What do I mean by this? Like, again, when I see my daughter, I feel like I'm always going to be happy. Like you said, changing diapers, things, it sucks sometimes, but I feel like there's a long-term happiness there. You know, compared to if I get like a Lambo or something, right?
Of course.
That'll make me happy.
Until you get that oil change bill.
I don't think that'll give me that long-term happiness that I want. Like, you know, I see this Lambo and I'm happy every single time. I think it's more of like a short-term happiness, but you have to find those long-term, you know, happiness.
It's like a quick dopamine hit sometimes whenever you do that. Like, oh, I got the Lambo, or oh, I just had this like fire meal, and it's like, well, once you're done eating and once you get out of the Lambo, it's like you can't live in your Lambo.
Yeah, like that Chipotle. That's it. I love Chipotle. That's the short-term happiness for me.
But you can't have Chipotle breakfast, lunch, and dinner because you wouldn't always like it. You'd be like, ugh, every time.
Well,
oh,
I would eat it every day.
Oh gosh.
This is a separate topic, but you can probably eat it every day.
Okay, you probably could, but you probably shouldn't eat it every day. So we're gonna skip that. In this course, Dr. Santos, she brings basically this course is split up into 8 weeks. So the first week is basically you guys are gonna dive into, hey, what is happiness? Like, well, how do we consider happiness, and how do we really how do we measure happiness? Because also measuring it is important, and understanding your own happiness, because a lot of people are on antidepressants, and it has quadrupled in the last 20 years. So being in 2024, just in early 2000s, it was already ramping up. More people, more depression, more antidepressants being fed to the community. When you think about antidepressants, you kind of realize that it's not just a pill that you take. People are taking this because they're clinically depressed.
Correct.
They are being told by a therapist, you need, or a psychiatrist technically, and a therapist depending, but it's saying, hey, you are this way, and you do have this mindset that you got to take this pill, but at the same time, it's gonna take work.
Yeah.
You can't just hop on a pill and be like, I'm better. Oh my God, this is amazing. Life is great. No, you take the pill, or you take the pills. I don't know specifically how it works, but you got to do the steps that'll help you get up that ladder to being happiness. Because I'm sure you get depressed. We all get depressed, right?
Right. But I don't think, at least for me personally, I would resort to that. I understand some people do need it because they are, I guess, diagnosed.
Yeah, it's clinically diagnosed.
Exactly. Yeah. But I feel like a lot of people kind of jump to it to get that instant gratification, right?
Yeah.
When in reality, there's other avenues you can take before actually getting there. And I think it goes back to happiness.
Yeah.
Looking for things that make you happy, right? Things or even people. So.
Yeah, because when you jump to that, not saying that people want to be depressed, but I've gone through periods in my life where I'm sad. Yeah, maybe I lost a family member. Maybe I'm going through a breakup. A lot of things do happen in life where you're not going to feel good, but it's getting back on that horse and saying, you know what, you still show up, you still get out of bed, you're still waking up, you giving yourself a better opportunity, because the things that we can do in life to make us happy, I know you've mentioned teaching before. Teaching brings you happiness, but if you're not always teaching, then it's where do you find happiness? You find happiness in those little areas like we were mentioning before. What do you do? Would you say maybe on your drive to work, what makes you happy? Do you listen to something, or what do you play?
I've been listening to a lot of podcasts, or I guess you call them self-help, right? People that look like me are going through what I'm going through. Yeah. And kind of getting that reassurance. I'm listening to one guy, I can't remember his name. Maybe we could link it below, but it's I guess a black man's guide in corporate America, right? I go through a lot in my job. So sometimes I need to listen to that other person that's saying, hey, I'm going through it too, and here's what I did to, overcome some of these obstacles
and find a way out.
Exactly. So that's a good question. If I'm not thinking about my daughter or my family or teaching, what other things am I doing to find that happiness?
You got to do it for yourself first.
Yeah, especially with an hour drive.
That's so 2 hours a day. 2
hours a day, and I could just be moping behind a wheel and almost getting hit by a Tesla or something. I have to listen to something. So that's what I've been listening to. So
it uplifts your spirits. Everybody, I do listen to podcasts, but sometimes putting on music that really can bring you upbeat and be you got to get in that mindset. Not everybody's liking the job they're going to. It's not fair. It sucks. Yes. But at the same time, putting yourself in that mindset, hey, I got an hour drive, I got 30 minutes before I get to work, I'm gonna jam out in the car. Exactly. So you walk into work with that energy, because your energy is so important that you could walk in somewhere and literally just bring it down. And if you stay in that deep hole, you're gonna keep digging yourself deeper and deeper.
And then it's about the small things too, right? You also have to think, well, things can be someone out there probably has it worse, right?
Yeah.
Or I don't know, well, after this, I'm going to see a person that I love. I'm going to be doing this after. I think you should also create things that you're looking forward to doing
100%.
to kind of overcome that that low point that you have, or depression.
Like you're just focusing on work, like work. Like think about the lunch break. Think about what you're gonna
lunch break,
eat.
exactly.
Think about excitement, like, oh, you're gonna get Chipotle on lunch.
Exactly. Yeah, Chipotle every day.
Chipotle sponsor.
White rice, black beans, lettuce, double chicken, and
I
then
feel you.
the tomato. It's a name for it.
The salsa.
No.
Oh, picadillo.
Yeah.
Yes, because that is, that's those things that you have to find the little things in life, because I've had family members that are, I don't know if they were clinically diagnosed with depression, but like a lot of them have gotten in a rut where they're not happy, or I've had friends who do that. I know this one friend of mine who was on bipolar meds, and she was having highs and lows. When you're really high and you're up there, you feel amazing, but when you get down low, it's like, oh man, you're really down low.
Yeah.
But you can't just take that pill or you can't take the medication and then not do the work and not like try to make the effort, because usually when they give you these medications, they also say, hey, you got to take the medication and you got to go to therapy.
Yeah.
Therapy is amazing, and so are the medications. But what are you doing to like also not always depend on it? Or what are you doing when you don't need that? Like if you're not clinically diagnosed to be depressed, come on, you don't need the medicine. Now you're just taking it to kind of like say, oh, I'm going to do this. When in reality, you could give yourself some more like TLC, just love yourself, give yourself more care. Because doing this, like you see that in the last 20 years, like antidepressants just skyrocketed, and it's just like, wow, like that's so scary. That is fearing.
Yeah, that just shows that people just want that instant gratification, and I almost feel like it's just kind of being given out, like, hey, just take this, and that's it. It'll solve everything. But
instead of doing the work, they're like, hey, I'm just gonna give you this, and you're gonna be fine, right? And in reality, like, oh, I am not fine.
Yeah.
I need more help. But it does take work, because you can actually measure your happiness. So there's something called the PERMA test. It stands for positive emotion, engagement, relationships, meaning, and accomplishments. So PERMA. And it scores your happiness on a 1 to 10, So on a 1 to 10, what do you think, how happy you are?
How does is like a 7.5 good? That'd be considered good.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Right?
I mean, I feel like you might have said 50-50 in the beginning.
7 point, yeah. Well, yeah, 7.5. I kind of take it back. 7.5. I feel like I do have my highs, and then I have my lows, but not like low lows. Just because, again, I've kind of been good at thinking of the bigger picture, thinking of
like how to persevere, kind of, and keep going.
Yeah, exactly. And I can't say 10 or 9. I think I would be lying, because I think those are almost too perfect. Tell me what you're doing, right? I want to know what you're doing, because life is life. Like you go through so much stuff. You go through so much stuff.
Yeah.
That I don't think anyone can be 10 out of 10, because I really want to know what you're doing.
It's like you said, it's not real, because I had an English professor actually tell me, like, she doesn't give out 100% on like essays or anything, like, which is messed up, because in college, like, your biggest dream is like, I got 100% on this 4-page essay that I worked so hard for. But in reality, she says she doesn't give out 100% because there's always room for improvement, no matter what. So you could get a 95, but there was still that 5% that you could have got. And it was like, wow, like at the moment I was like, wow, that's such a crappy way. That's such a crappy way to like grade people. Like, you're just not trying to give hundreds.
You can only get the 100 if it's a multiple choice.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
It's subjective, and maybe you had one grammar error, so it's not 100%.
They're trying to keep that bell curve,
exactly. But,
like very little people.
But no, I don't think it could ever be 100%. I think that's just selling something that's completely not false, but fake, right?
No, yeah,
I don't think anyone could be like 100%, 10 out of 10.
You can just
you're telling
do your
me
best.
There's not a day where you're not happy. Like, come on.
Yeah, all you can do is keep trying your best, and even if you try, like, that's a better effort than just giving up. Because I took my PERMA result, and let me tell you, so it was actually a 5.94, which is
out of 10.
Yeah.
Oh man,
so it's a little.
You're almost the 50-50.
Yeah. I took this in the beginning of the course, so I'm gonna take it again after, just to kind of see. But a 5.94, and honestly, like you said, it's a little bit above 50%. I'm not even scratching a D. I'm a F plus.
So, and when you say PERMA score, what was the acronym?
It was positive emotion. It was engagement. It was relationship. It was meaning and achievements. So for me, my meaning, it was kind of low. Like, And I've had that problem. I think a lot of people do. You try to find that meaning in life, the purpose, like we were talking about before. You want to have that, but when you're...
We spoke about it before?
I think so, yeah. Before, I don't know. Either before this or in this, I forgot. But I know we talked about it. And... What?
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so having that happiness and having that like low, I guess like meaning in my life, it did make me reflect on like, hey, I really don't have like, not that I don't have meaning. Like I know I'm here, I make people happy, I show up, I still do work, but like for myself, like what is that like own self purpose and like that meaning that I have for myself, and that takes work to find that.
So have you done any good deeds or things that you feel very good about? Like a good deed?
Good deed? I mean, I feel like I'm a good person overall.
Yeah.
Like, so yeah, if I see somebody that like needs help, I'm going to try to help them. I try to open the door for people, try to say like, hey, if you hit me up and you're like, dude, I need you right now, I'm like, I got you. Just, I'll pull up. But it really depends, you know. So I was really high in my positive emotion. I don't know if you could tell, but I am obviously like, you know me, but they don't know me. I am a very like optimistic person for the most part.
You shine very bright. Hey friends, thank you for being a part of the podcast. If you're feeling stressed out, you're stuck, or just unhappy with life, make sure you click the link in the description where we'll teach you how to take control of your life and make a difference. Now let's get back to the podcast.
I keep that positive energy and that's good, but then when you start like breaking down the different scales, because those optimistic people, I don't trust them either, you know, and I'm a happy person. Somebody who's always like, ha, 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 he. You just lost somebody. Ha, 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 ha. That's okay.
Yeah.
It seems too forced and it seems too fake. And it seems that like being happy is being able to deal with those hard emotions and also really like kind of sitting with them, because I mean, are you, like you said, are you happy all the time? No, it's hard.
No.
So like, you know, your happiness, you may have meaning, but maybe like you get down in the dumps, maybe you start like overthinking a little bit, but it's not a permanent place to reside, you know?
And I want to kind of go back because I said I was 50-50 happiness, but my PERMA score is 7.5. So the PERMA score isn't just happiness, it's a combination of things.
So it's a combination of like psychological areas that are supposed to like accumulate your happiness, you know? Because it also talks about, it's not named in the PERMA acronym, but it also brings up loneliness and also brings up negative emotions.
Yes.
So like my negative emotions were really low and my positive emotions are really high.
Yeah.
My loneliness was also low because I was raised as an only child for 10 years, so I'm pretty good by myself. Like I could hang out with myself. I enjoy my solitude.
Yeah.
But other people might say like, man, my positive emotion is down. Like they're just a negative Nancy. No offense, Nancy's out there, but still like I'd rather be a positive Patty. Shout out Patties. But seriously, you know, like you have those areas where you're like, man, like you ever meet somebody and they're just always down and you're like, come on.
Yeah,
like,
come on.
Chip her up something.
Like, is there anything that you like, or there has to be something?
You got to find happiness somewhere.
You have to.
That's the work that it takes, because, you know, there's also a test called the Authentic Happiness, and in this course, they give you like 3 tests. You got the PERMA, you got the Authentic Happiness, and then you also have your character strengths. So PERMA, it's like, it breaks it down a little bit more. Authentic Happiness, again, it's kind of overall. It's not like too specific. It's more like, oh, like on a scale to 1 to 5, how happy are you? And they ask you a bunch of generic questions.
Yeah.
Mine was a 2.83. So also barely scoring. If it's out of 5, I'm barely over 50%. That's going to take my own inner work to kind of like start bringing that out in myself.
And this is all you're saying character?
No, this is different ways to understand your happiness, because if you understand your PERMA, you understand the areas that you're lacking in, you understand your authentic happiness, like are you truly happy to the core? And then you have this last one, which is character strengths. It tells you what do you have in yourself and your personality that like you kind of shine in. Like you're a teacher, so one of your character strengths could be educating people. You know, you love sharing knowledge, you love teaching, but at the same time, I don't know, like for me, mine was self-regulation. You know, I kind of get lazy sometimes. I kind of am not self-regulated to a certain degree, you know.
Yeah.
I do need that little bit of push, or I also need that like, hey, come on, keep going, man, because sometimes I could take a challenge to the face and just be like, oh no, it's over. And that's tough, you know, but there's also other areas where my humor can keep me going, you know. So like if you can find out that your character is like, you're a funny person, you're upbeat, okay, cool, but you also need like to work on these parts where it's like you got to keep going, remind yourself to keep going, remind yourself you got to be disciplined and do the work, because if you're not disciplined, you're going to be unhappy. if you don't keep going, you're gonna be unhappy. Like we said, you can't just be happy and then not ignore or just ignore the like parts of you that aren't there. You know, is there any character trait about yourself that you're like, I could work on that a little bit? There has to be. Don't give me that. Don't give me that.
No, I feel like I would really have to think about this. Is there like more examples you could give?
Like perspective. Some people are very like narrow-minded.
Mm-hmm.
Also, a lot of people sometimes feel like they are not as humble. You know, a lot of us need some humble for sure. Yeah, I mean,
I think I'm humbled. I don't know yet. I would have to come back to you on that. I would really have to think about it.
Okay. Is there anything that you would say that you do in your personality that you're like, ah, man, like, come on, don't do that. Maybe you could be an overworker, you know, not saying that's a bad thing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
okay.
I found the one.
I think I found the one. Sometimes I do feel like I have imposter syndrome.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa. Are you?
Maybe not. Sometimes I feel that way. I don't know. I just really take my work serious. When I say work, I mean just anything in general, right? I feel
For
like
sure.
sometimes, am I doing good enough, or you know?
You got to remind yourself, like, hey, like you got achievements, like you're doing good. You're doing
and
good.
again, hearing other people, you know, make mistakes, or you know, not saying they feel the same way, but seeing other people make mistakes and maybe well, I guess just mistakes. It kind of makes me say, okay, well, I'm not the only one that made that mistake, or you know, no one's perfect, and I really have that imposter syndrome. I think that's a very bad characteristic, because people would say, Diondre, you're doing great, and it's like,
they don't know me. They don't know the real me.
Like that could have been better, and it is true. Everything, there's always room for improvement.
That's perfectionist in you too.
Exactly, but I have to realize there's really there's no such thing as really like perfection. Nobody is perfect.
You're right.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that out of me. Yeah.
For sure, because once you say, like, having all this information, like it can be overbearing. You realize that, like, wow, I have so much going on and so much input, not only from yourself, from the outside world, just always getting like, are you happy? Are you not happy? Are you this? Are you that? Like, sometimes you got to sit with it, but also work with it, you know, because in the course they bring up this thing called G.I. You know who G.I. Joe is, right? He's like
the
army
guy with the guns.
Yeah.
The
Exactly.
soldier.
The army guy,
Yeah.
So there was an old TV show where at the end of it he would go like, the more you know, like, thanks G.I. Joe. And Professor Santos brings this up, and it's like, hey, like, the more information you know doesn't mean that like you're gonna be able to capitalize on that information. So like it's not, I think they said like knowing is half the battle. Knowing is not half the battle, you know. Like, I think knowing is probably like a little, like maybe a quarter of the battle, because if you have the information, cool, but the rest of the battle is doing it, you know. So like for me, I've been affected by like, hey, like I know I got to save money, but I still go out and I spend it, you know. And I'm sure people can relate that, hey, you want to save up for something, but you're just, man, you just see that one item that you're like, you know what, I could spend the money here, I could spend it here, and you're like, come on, you know, you want to do more, and you know what you need to do. Like, what do you know you need to do, but you're like, I haven't done that yet, even though you know you need to.
Stop eating Chipotle every day.
Hey, that's a real thing. That
no, but seriously, so what you're saying is that we feel that, or at least the fallacy is saying that you know something, and the other, that's only half of it.
Yeah, because the info doesn't mean the solution. I mean, the info can get you to the solution, but just because you have the info doesn't mean you're gonna get the solution.
Oh, I see. So there's a lot of people out here that, I don't know, they know that, you know, maxing out their credit card, their finances, they know what the consequences are.
Exactly.
But they haven't applied that information.
Correct.
Right? It's kind of like even taking a course. You know this information, but now you have to apply it.
Yep.
And saying it's, you know, 50% is not really truthful.
No, knowing is not half the battle. I gotta know it, work it, and make it, and keep working it, you know.
Right.
Like, for myself, like, I always struggle with my weight, but I'm also, in my heart, I love sweets, you know. But if I want to look a certain way, I got to put the sweets down. I got to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to do better for myself, because if not, then it's going to be, oh, I want to look this way, but you know how to get there, but you're not doing it, you know. And I've struggled with that for a very long time, that even to this day, like, I'm drinking water, you know, like, just because I don't want to, like, I'm afraid of those little things where I'm like, oh, man, like, the water doesn't make me happy, but what's going to bring me later is going to make me happy, you know. Like, if I know that, and
I feel kind of the same way, where I know the information as far as like trying to lose weight and going to the gym.
Yep.
It's just maybe I need that extra push. I have to do it myself.
Exactly.
You know, maybe someone has to tap into my potential.
There you go. There you go.
You know what
But
I mean?
I mean, like the education, like, you know, educating yourself, and even if you wanted to like pass a test, you know, you need to like study, and you know you got to do these things, but you get invited to go out to the party.
Invited,
Yeah. You get invited to go out to this party, but you kind of realize like, hey, it's either stay in and study and try to get a good grade, or just say, screw it, I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna party, I'm not gonna think about my grade, and I'm gonna wing it the next morning and cram. Which one is really gonna make you happy? The party is only like a temporary band-aid. Again, it's that dopamine hit that you're just like, oh, I love that stuff, yeah, let me get it. But then in the long run, your happiness is going really downhill. So doing this little exercise of like knowing the problem and addressing it, but also saying, what action steps can you take? You know,
Correct.
What plan can we make to say, hey, like, I know I want to save a little bit of money. You know, every time you get a paycheck, put some money aside. I know I want to lose weight. You know what? Maybe don't start full body 5 times a week in the gym, because that's excessive.
Yeah.
Start baby steps. You know.
Yeah. Maybe like one day out of the week.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then, so when we start talking about these things, like your mind is like basically saying like, you know the solution, but you can't use it. And it's kind of weird, because it's like, I know how to get there, but I just can't. That's not a problem. That's just everyday humans. That's us getting in our heads. So
Right.
our minds play tricks on us. Have you heard of optical illusions before?
Yes, I've heard of these before.
Okay.
Yes, of course.
I already showed Diondre what the optical illusion is going to be. But it just basically shows you that like a lot of people who, and they've shown this as a kid, you got like 2 lines, you got an arrow pointing one way outwards, like that way, and then you got one pointing this way. They ask you which one's bigger and which one's smaller.
Yes.
And then you're like, oh, well, the arrows that are pointing outward, or inward, should I say, they look bigger. You know, I'll put a picture here and you'll be able to see like, okay, the one on the bottom or the one on the top looks bigger, but in reality, they're the same size.
Yes.
But your mind is like, oh, this one looks bigger, but it's not. It's not. And that confuses us, because we see so many things in our life that it's like, hey, it might look a certain way, but it's really not. I guess I would ask, like, is there anything that you kind of like have felt that it may not seem what it is? You know, you may be like, oh, okay, like this does look like the better deal, or this does look, but in reality, it's the same thing. You know, like, you know, it might be just like picking a fruit at the market and being like, wow.
Is it like a buy one get one freeze? Like the
Yeah, sure.
Like, I don't know.
You could have like maybe the same thing, but just like the appearance, like maybe like a fruit that looks a little bit bruised on the outside. You're like, oh no, the one that's perfect looks way better. But in reality, you might cut it open and it's still the same exact fruit. Not always. Don't hold me to that. You might buy some rotten fruit, but at the same time, it's still kind of that concept of like, oh snap, this is actually the same. My mind is just automatically going, it looks that way, so it's that way.
It looks that way, so it's that way.
Yeah.
So, like you said, you have a fruit, it's bad. It looks bad. You cut it open, it's good.
Yeah.
But you're just kind of
automatically, your mind is saying, boom.
just saying, boom, that's what it is.
And that's not a real optical illusion, but that is something that we go throughout in life. Like, we see something, and at first glance, our mind is going to be like, that's the answer. That's this. But once you start sitting down and you look at it, and you're like, oh, okay, these two opposite lines, or these 2 different lines, they actually are the same length. These 2 fruits are on the inside. This one just has a little bit of a darker blemish on the outside or something, you know?
I guess that's something where you kind of do that with yourself, right?
Exactly.
That was the right answer.
Yeah.
I was over here thinking, I don't want to be embarrassed. I want to say the right answer. I think that's
there
what
is
you're
no
getting.
right or wrong answer, though.
But I think that's what you're getting at.
Yeah.
I guess it's something in yourself. You're automatically telling yourself, I am this person, or maybe, I don't know, this is what it is. But when you dig deeper, it's something else.
Yeah,
Correct me if I'm wrong.
It's not just about like digging deeper, but it is like about realizing that it's not everything at first glance is always going to be the way it is. It's always about learning how to look at it and then really use like not like intuition, but use like critical thinking maybe. Because when I say an optical illusion, off rip, you're gonna know illusion. Okay, they're trying to get one on me. I know. Oh, which line is bigger? Oh, well, you know what? If you're trying to allude to me, then I would say that this line is the same as that line. But if I was just to walk up on you in the street and say, excuse me, which line is bigger, this one or that one? You might be like, obviously the one looking this way, you know? And there's a bunch of different ones. They'll take like a big circle and put it around tiny circles. And then they'll take, it's the same circle, but now they'll put it around smaller circles. I mean, like bigger circles. It's weird. So it just makes it seem bigger. So you have one big one and you put tiny ones around it. It's going to look bigger. But then you have a tiny one and you put bigger ones around it. Even though it's the same size, it looks smaller. So it's all about perspective. That's the main thing here. Because if we can't change our perspective, how are we going to improve our lives and our happiness?
That's true. I see.
Yeah, and that shift, I think you've mentioned this to me before. It's like a paradigm shift. I don't know if you can give me a little bit of an insight on that.
Paradigm shift?
Or
I mentioned this before?
Paradigm shift or
Don't
like
put me on the spot.
Bigger.
he did this twice already. We talked about this before.
Okay, but you were the science. You were the science to my psychology. So definitely, I think you've mentioned like a paradigm shift, like a bigger bubble thinking. You know.
Okay. Yes.
Okay, there we go.
Yes,
so it's kind of like moving yourself into like a different way of like, hey, it may not be this way. You know, right?
Right. So it's bigger bubble thinking. It was really more in regards to moving on from one thing to the next. And you know, when people say the grass isn't always greener on the other side, well, maybe the grass is greener a block away, right?
Yeah.
I think that that's an illusion in itself.
For sure. Yeah.
People stay stuck in
the grass is spray painted green.
People stay stuck in one mindset, or in one job, or you know, just in one setting. If you never break out of that bubble and don't think bigger bubble, going on to the next bubble, you'll really never know what else is out there. You have to change your mindset and your perspective. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I was like, what paradigm shift? What? Maybe I said that before, but when you said bigger bubble thinking, I knew what you was talking about, because I am a big advocate of it. If you have time, really I have like 3 articles. Read it. Trust me.
DiondreMonPoint.com.
Trust me, read it. It's important to shift your mindset. I know so many people that feel like they're stuck. And again, my experience is really in like jobs and like kind of like higher positions. And there's so many people that are stuck. Just think big. Go to that next bubble. And you have something called the free matrix. So you have one bubble that you're stuck in, and you're afraid to break out of that mindset or that job or whatever case it may be. And you go out into this free matrix, you're scared, and you go on to the next bubble. It's not the end of the world. You could just go on to the next bubble. Keep going until you find that perfect spot, you know, and
it'll lead you to happiness. And that's all this is about. This is what this course is about.
Yeah.
This course is about teaching you how to find happiness, or not find it necessarily, but how to cultivate it, you know, create it, like adjust it as it goes, because like you said, we're not always going to be happy. We don't always wake up sunshine and rainbows. It's going to be rainy, but learning how to shift and be like, you know what, I got to shift my mind this way and shift it that way. And
I think and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that, you know, at least with us, if you were to ask me, hey Diondre, how can I increase my happiness, I may not have the answer for you, but I can at least give you the tools or navigate you so you can find that happiness.
Yeah, and we got to try to do this together and really look for it, because you may see one thing that I don't see about myself, and that's what we need. We need to build off each other. So, you know, Professor Santos gave us a bunch of information. It was beautiful learning from her course, and the fact that Coursera gives it for free is amazing too. Again, we'll put the links below. Dr. Santos also has a podcast called The Happiness Lab. It's on Apple. She has a podcast too? She has a podcast, and you know, give her a shout and look her up and watch her stuff, because this is only week 1. We're gonna get into week 2 in the next episode and keep learning this stuff, because happiness is work, and nobody wants to be on this planet miserable. Like, you know,
it's a beautiful planet. You want to be happy with the trees.
They say you say you can't be happy with what, riding on a jet ski. Like, you know what, I want to be happy on the jet ski, but I also want to be happy when I'm off the jet ski, you know, like I want to be I'm on the water, and then when I'm home doing nothing, I'm like, you know what, I still feel happy. I'm not just getting that dopamine hit.
Exactly.
And I think that's pretty much it for today. I want to thank everybody for watching. If you made it this far, go check out Professor Santos, Coursera, The Science of Wellbeing, and check out our website, needafriendly.co. That's CO, not com, because we haven't bought it yet. But again, I'm RJ.
I'm Diondre.
And we'll see you guys next time.
All right, peace.
Yeah.
Nice.